I guess um, I also did regular decision. I was really confused about what kind of school I wanted to go to. I thought I wanted to go to a bigger southern school at one point. I wanted to go across the country, and I thought I wanted to be far away from home. And SWAT's one of the last schools I visited, and yeah, I just really fell in love with the campus, honestly, and how pretty it was because it was spring. So despite my allergies and asthma, I really just fell in love with that. I had a really amazing tour guide, Kyle Richmond Crossett, who will always have a special place in my heart because he literally made me choose SWAT. Um, so yeah, those are, I guess, some surface level reasons, but at the same time, I think the kind of environment that I felt when I visited, it was very much for me like a feeling of just like, yeah, this is my place, this is my home.
Yeah, so I also applied regular decision. I knew I wanted to do engineering, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I also didn't really know if I wanted to do engineering. SWAT was really nice because as part of the liberal arts education, they force you to take other classes that you don't really want to take or you think you don't want to take and then you fall in love with. Um, I found that the general engineering, sort of liberal artsy engineering that SWAT has is something that I really liked about SWAT. And then also just the fact that they had a brand new Office of Sustainability with a lot of moving pieces and work for engagement with students is something that I was fascinated with. That along with the really great financial aid that I got was really the main reasons that I accepted SWAT over any other schools.
Can I answer? My internet keeps going in and out, so that might be an issue for now. But for me, for SWAT, okay, financial aid, really important. I'm pretty sure a lot of us talked about that while I was out. Um, and yeah, I'm a low income student, and I was able to come to SWAT like full ride compared to other institutions that are public and are supposed to help you out a little bit more, especially in the CUNY New York system. And so, yeah, I really needed a full ride. And this wasn't based on merit. It was just simply based on the fact that I needed the aid. I also wanted a small community. I come from a very large high school of about 6,000 students and really needed that small community.
So the next question is about financial aid, which some of us already touched on, specifically about stability in financial aid from year to year and the financial aid office's response to like changes in family situation. So I just want to preface all of this by saying that like financial aid and admissions are separate. So if you have specific financial aid questions about your family, call or email our financial aid office on the website because they can answer that question way better than any of us can. Personally, I have received pretty much the same financial aid package every year. And actually, this past year, I decided to live in an off campus like apartment, so not campus provided housing, which is a really small percentage of students do that. About 97% of students live on campus. But my financial aid package didn't change with me living off campus because the financial aid office says like, look, even if you're living off campus, we expect you to still have all these expenses. So we're going to make sure that your financial aid stays the same so that you can continue to go to SWAT and continue to not have the extra burden.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate in terms of um, responsiveness. It's a case by case basis for the most part, as is with any financial aid with any other institution. Honestly, depends on your situation. Yeah. So, all right. What else can we answer?
So the next question is, what do you do for fun on campus aside from some extracurriculars on weekends or during free time? I think there's a lot of different things that students can do for fun. It really just comes down to what do you like to do for fun. There are students who like to go out and have parties on the weekends. There are students who like to party on weekdays as well. There are students who like to go out and play board games. There are students who like to go watch movies. My freshman year, I was of the board game variety, so I would go to this board game group that met every Friday, which is the nerdiest thing ever. But we ended up spending like 6 hours inside of a classroom just playing board games, which is super duper fun. I agree with that. And then I turned into like this movie person who would always watch movies at the cinema that's like a van right away. Other things that I do sometimes when I'm just feeling like bored or just want to hang out, I'll just invite people over to my room and we can watch some TV together. We can just chill and hang out, just talk. I think it depends on whatever mood you're feeling like, but there's definitely a lot of different people at the school who have different ideas of fun. So like you can always find that person that I think will want to do the same thing you want to do on the weekend.
I would add to that too by saying that there's all sorts of people and groups that are brought to campus, which is really cool. So a lot of times on the weekends, there will be different speaker series happening, or like there'll be concerts, and everything that happens on our campus is free for students. So we have what's called a cash-free campus, which means that everything is included in the cost of tuition. So all of those clubs that Oswaldo was talking about, like it's a board game club, it's a movie club, you never have to pay dues for any of that. You just go and hang out, and that's really great. And then if there is a speaker coming to campus, you can go to that and show your student ID card and get in for free. So for example, this fall, I went to a really interesting speaker series about like Eastern Europe and the return of totalitarianism and authoritarianism, which is really similar to what I learned about while I was studying abroad. And so I got to meet Masha Gessen, who is a staff writer for the New Yorker, and I got a free copy of her book. They gave a free copy of her book, like a signed free copy to every single student who went to the talk. So that was really cool. And I've also gone to like dance performances with groups that have been brought in. Malcolm Jenkins, who until recently played for the Eagles, he came to campus before break and did a big series. So there's all sorts of stuff like that that's also happening that a lot of students will participate in on the weekends.
I also go to Philly a lot. I would say that. That's the only thing where I love staying on campus, but I also love taking the train. I also, being art history student, I'm constantly going to, the Barnes, PMA, Philadelphia Museum of Art. But I like to go when I can with my friends. And one of my friends does stand-up comedy and has had shows in Philly that I've gone to see her in. Another one of my friends is an amazing photographer and has had shows in Philly. So when I can, I try to get off campus too, but there's definitely a lot to do on campus at the same time.
So a question that this being asked, it's like all the way at the bottom for us, for the panelists. It's what advice do you have for first-gen students? And personally, for me, my advice for first-generation students is imposter syndrome is very real. That's basically when you feel like you don't belong at an institution because you're comparing yourself to a bunch of other people around you who have people that they know that have gone to college and that kind of thing. So that can be a very real thing at institutions like SWAT. My advice is to kind of always surround yourself with people who kind of believe in you and support you in any shape, way, or form. Basically, honestly, just giving you all the support that you need, when you're in your good times, when you're your bad times, literally anything.
All right. The next question is about research opportunities on campus and financial access to research opportunities and summer fellowships. So there's a few different ways that SWAT helps support students with summer internships, things during the semester, things after graduation. So over the summer, students can apply for different types of research funding. So you can apply for funding from the department that you're trying to do research in. So that's oftentimes how students will work with professors. We have about 60% of students doing research with professors on campus, and that's across all disciplines. So a lot of times people will think about research and think, oh, like STEM, natural sciences, right? But we have a ton of research happening in the humanities and social sciences as well. I had a friend who went to Greece and did archaeology research with one of our professors. So like there's lots of opportunities there. Personally, I did some field biology research with one of our biology professors, and I got a $4,500 grant from Swarthmore to do that over the course of the summer, and that was my income money for the summer. So my professor's grant covered my room and board at the biology station where we were working, and then that $4,500 covered any other expenses I had, like my flight there and back, and then also was like my reimbursement and pocket money for that summer, which was really important because I did feel like I needed to earn money over the summer. So the grant was able to help with that. This past summer, I received a different type of funding called Lang funding from the Lang Center for Civil and Social Responsibility. And so they give different grants for students who are doing social justice related projects or like civic engagement projects. So I was out at Stanford doing research on women's reproductive health care, specifically contraception. And so I received another like $4,800 grant for that covered all my living expenses. It covered my transportation to and from San Francisco. And actually my research at Stanford has been published now, so that was really cool. And a lot of students are able to get published work out of these summer opportunities.
I got a question about the art history program and working at the List Gallery. I know it's specific, but art history program is really small at SWAT. So we have a couple of departments that are really like are together. So sociology and anthropology, for instance, an example, studio art and art history are one department. And so I believe it's less than 40 people who are juniors and seniors currently who are studying either majoring or minoring in either studio art and art history. So sorry, that was a common way of saying that. Basically, it's a very small program. And I really enjoy that. And that means I know a lot of the professors and they know me really well. And I know a lot of the people who are studying what I am. And I really enjoy the program. Hannah talked a little bit about funding. I was able to get a grant from the art history department to do my thesis research. Hopefully I'll still be able to do it. Although it's for my sociology anthropology major, it's art historically based. It's on monuments on the East Coast that are kind of commemorating Black trauma and Black racial trauma in the US. And so I was able to get the funding from them to do that. They're really, really supportive. I also did an externship in Minneapolis at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and they paid for my flights, they paid for my food, and reimbursed all of my receipts. So really great. I think a lot of departments are like this. You can reach out to them. If you can't get funding from them, there's a lot of different ways you can get funding. Lang is one way, provost office is another. So definitely a lot of places for funding with that. So overall, I really enjoy the program, and working at List is great. I get to talk to artists and develop kind of a curriculum. I get to hang out with art, and I think that's really cool. But my job is mostly just to sit there and greet people. So I have a lot of time to do work. And as for studying abroad, I did not study abroad and I opted not to, but there are a lot of different programs in general with study abroad. You can always find, if you can find it, you can basically go if it's through other schools. And one of my friends went to Florence and was looking at architecture in the fall. So definitely different programs and different opportunities with our history program as I've experienced it, but definitely with a lot of other programs as well.
Just to add on to Bria's point about study abroad, about 45% of students at SWAT will study abroad while they're here, and your financial aid package carries with you when you study abroad. So whatever you pay for a regular Swarthmore semester is what you'll pay for study abroad, which is really, really great, especially if you're getting financial aid. What SWAT will also do that's really cool is they'll pay for all the amenities that you would have on campus. So like when you're on campus, you have all your food provided for you, which is great. But when you study abroad, your program might only include, say, breakfast or dinner with a host family, but they don't give you any money for lunches. If your program doesn't provide you with something like that, SWAT will give you the money to cover that. So when I was living in Serbia, I had to take the bus every day to get to school. And so my program happened to cover the cost of my bus tickets, but if they hadn't, Swarthmore would have paid for that as well, which is really nice. So that way, studying abroad is not an extra financial burden on any students, which I think is really great because it was one of the best experiences that I had at SWAT. And I definitely learned a lot, and it really supplemented a lot of my coursework in peace and conflict studies. And if you're interested in more study abroad opportunities, you can go onto the off-campus study website that we have, and there's a list of like over 200 programs on there, and you can look by region, by language, by topic, and kind of just get a sense of where students are going, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah, so the next question says, for the ensembles at Swarthmore, where do you get the instruments and how would the audition go? So for first years, the audition usually happens during orientation week, which is the week before classes start. If you want to be a part of an ensemble, you reach out to the Department of Music during that time, and they'll let you guys know what the process is like. But to get instruments, you don't need to have your own instrument. Although if you do have one, it's preferred that you bring one because sometimes they don't have that many. I know I'm using the only bass clarinet that we have on campus. You usually just go to the Department of Music and Dance and say that you'd like to rent out an instrument. And if you're in an ensemble, it's a pretty easy process. One of the really nice things about the music program is you don't need to be a music major to be involved in the ensembles or rent out their instruments. I'm not a music major, but I'm in the wind ensemble. I performed in the orchestra last year for one of their pieces, which was really fun. I know a lot of students are in the choir, and I can't really speak to dance that much, but I do know that dance and music are the same in that a lot of the people who are involved in those groups are not like solely music or dance majors, but a lot of other majors at SWAT, which just goes to show how much different things people do. But yeah, so you would audition the first week and you get an instrument from the Department of Music and Dance.
A question that appeared is, do you know what will be the process for choosing dorms and getting roommates? So in terms of for next semester, that is still, we will still, send out that information. We will still be in communication. But usually the way the process works every year for the freshmen, especially, usually we ask you to fill out a questionnaire of some kind with a ton of questions that like try to get to know you as best as possible. So like they will ask you, are you a messy person, a clean person? And it's best that you answer all of these as honest as possible, because you will be paired up with someone who's kind of similar in the ways that you are. We do not use a random computer algorithm or anything like that to match you up. It's like people in the Office of Student Engagement who are in charge of housing that actually get to pair you up with someone who they believe will be the best fit for you. So far, our track record is around like 60% of freshmen like to stick with the same roommate into their sophomore year, because we usually recommend sophomores room with someone. The lottery can be very unkind to sophomores, but junior and senior year, you usually have like a secured single, which is just your own room. If anybody else wants to add on to that, or no? No? All right, cool.
So the next question is about how does SWAT help prepare you for medical school, and like different volunteering opportunities and hospitals in the area that you can work at, and also the relationship with faculty, making sure that you're on track. So there's a few questions about pre-med. There was also one about studying abroad while pre-med, and how connected SWAT is to medical school admissions. So I'm going to kind of try and tackle all of those in one go. So the way that pre-med and also pre-law works at SWAT is that we have a special office with two advisors. One of them, her name is Gigi Simeone, and she is our pre-health and pre-law advisor. She's fantastic. She's been doing this for like 20 years. So she has really, really good relationships with a lot of top medical schools and a lot of top law schools. The way that pre-med works at SWAT is it's 15 classes that you have to take that medical schools all across the country have agreed are like what you need to prepare for the MCAT, which is the medical school acceptance exam. And then there are also classes that you need to be able to take your prerequisites and everything once you're in medical school. So Gigi is a really good resource, especially your first year. I met with her during orientation. I said, listen, like I know that I want to go to medical school. I have no idea what I actually want to study in college, but I do know that I want to end up at medical school. And she said, okay, that sounds great. You can start taking some of those required courses this fall. And so she was a really good resource there for helping me figure out how I wanted to lay out the classes that I needed to take for pre-med. I think the biggest thing with being able to study abroad for me and major in something that isn't really related to my pre-med courses with peace and conflict studies was that you just have to be organized and have a plan for when you're going to take certain classes. But otherwise, it's very, very possible to major in something very different than your pre-med requirements. It's totally possible to study abroad. It's possible to double major. Like all of those things are very, very accessible for pre-med students. And then once you enter the medical school application process, you continue working with Gigi in the office. She writes you a letter of recommendation. We have different programs where you can get discounted study courses for the MCAT, which is really, really helpful because sometimes those classes can be really expensive. And there's also lots of internship opportunities that come through the health sciences office. So I get a ton of emails during the semester from Gigi with different volunteering opportunities, either with like hospice home care or with all of the UPenn hospitals in Philadelphia. Those are a great resource for students. We also have this really cool program that isn't just for pre-med students, but for all students called the externship program, where over winter break, students can spend a week shadowing an alum. And that could be anything from shadowing someone who teaches third grade to shadowing a surgeon to shadowing a farmer. I've had friends do all of those things. Personally, I shadowed a surgeon at Brigham and Women's in Boston. So I was in the OR for a week. I was in the clinic with him. And that was really cool because I got to have a good sense of what being a doctor actually looks like. And so a lot of students will take advantage of those externship opportunities and then also do volunteering things during the semester. SWAT has about an 86% medical school acceptance rate, which is over twice the national average. So we're definitely getting a lot of people into top medical schools. And I've felt supported throughout my entire process on the pre-med track.
So there was also a question about the music community at SWAT and music opportunities for non-majors and minors. In terms of for ensemble work, I think that you're able to audition for those ensembles whether or not you're a major or minor. You can request for a credit if you want. That's usually a half credit. In terms of other opportunities outside of the music department, I would like to say that the music scene is, I'd say, pretty active. We have a bunch of people who are working on getting more students involved with performance on campus, whether that be music, singing, dancing, art, literally anything of any kind. So for example, one of my good friends, Clay, started something we call NPPR Tiny Desk, which is similar to NPR Tiny Desk, but because we have a dorm here that we like to call NPPR, we have all those tiny desks hosted there. So we often have bunch of people from SWAT, sometimes a couple people from across the Trico come and perform. Literally anybody can do anything. So whether that set is a musical set, a poetry set, you just want to show off some artwork, that is up to you to decide. We also allow students to open up and do concerts here. We have an event space called O Club where a lot of those concerts take place, and they're pretty cool.
All right, there was a question about balancing a sport and academics at SWAT, which I think is definitely something that people need to think about, whether it's like a sport or music or theater or any extracurricular that you're interested in. It's definitely good to consider what that's going to look like in college. I apologize for the alarm in the background. I don't know if you guys can hear that. For me, I've really enjoyed being able to be on a team and have that social group of people as soon as I came to campus. That was really, really big for me. And then as far as like balancing workload, I think I would actually probably go crazy if I weren't running track and cross country, because it gives you a space to kind of step back from academics. So SWAT is definitely a very hard school. Like academics are hard here, and there's no two ways about that. And so I think finding a way to balance your academics with something that makes you really happy. Not that your academics can't make you happy, but sometimes they can be a little bit of a source of stress. And so finding something that takes you away from that and gives you a little bit of time away from your studies to spend time with your friends has been really, really big for me. I know also for myself, like if I wasn't running on the team, I would want to be doing something to stay active, whether that was joining a club sport or one of like taking a dance class or something, or just using our fitness resources. So having that time like scheduled in every day has been really nice for me because it provides structure in the day, and also kind of helps me like remember that there are things happening in the world outside of just academics and just what's happening on campus. I think my experience and Bria's experience as well a bit on the cross country and track teams is a little bit different than say the basketball team that maybe has a game on a Tuesday night. We only have our competitions on the weekends, so we might lose an entire weekend because we have a meet, but we're not out late on weeknights before we have class the next day or an exam the next day. So depending on your sport can kind of change what your schedule looks like a little bit.
I can take the next one. So this question says, not sure if any of you do this, but what is theater like at Swarthmore, and are students able to work on tech crews and stage management? So I do theater. I think David also does theater, or at least did theater with me at some points. My first semester at SWAT, I actually did stage manage a production. It was a senior production, so it was like an actual theater department run thing, and I got paid for it, which means I got a lot of money during tech week. A lot of students can work on tech crew, stage managing, even directing if they want to. I would say there's two different routes for theater you could take, and you can do both. One is doing theater department theater, so that's working on the directing pieces that students do, or the acting or lighting design and things like that. Even if you're not a theater major, you can audition for those and be a part of those. Those are usually more time involvement, I would say, and require a little bit more of a commitment. I would say like 10 hours a week was the production I did, although that could change. You can also do student-run theater. We have a student drama board, which puts on low commitment productions. There's this event called Playwrights Festival, which is plays that are acted or written by, acted in, and directed by SWATties. I did one last year, or I did one my freshman year, and I directed one my sophomore year. Both of those were super fun opportunities, and I only had to commit about 2 to 3 hours a week before tech week to do those, and it was a lot of fun. This year, we, like I said, David and I did a theater production for a musical. I helped stage manage that, and he was one of the actors. It was a very low stakes thing. We didn't even have a full show. We just did a staged reading, and luckily we were able to get that out before we were all kicked off of campus. Very glad to hear that. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to get involved, and if you have an idea for a musical or some production that you want to do, the student drama board is there to help provide resources to get that done.
So I'll take the next question. We have a question here that says, I'm already committed to SWAT. I feel like there may not be enough number of classes to pursue all interests, so engineering, physics, econ, philosophy, peace and conflict studies. What's the best way to choose my classes? For me, like my recommendation, the way I would choose classes, a very big part is talking to people who might know the professor, if the professor is somebody who's been at SWAT already. Each professor expects something different from the students, so all professors are different from one another. There's not like a set standard to how a professor will like grade assignments or how they will treat students. So very highly recommend talking to students of like what those professors are like. And I usually like to go for classes that are like smaller in size because I just like the smaller feel of classes, or classes that are more dependent on discussion rather than being lectured to. So once again, highly recommend, looking at the syllabus and doing all that kind of stuff. Anybody else want to contribute?
I would also say, so there are a few other questions that I've seen come up just about like distribution requirements. And so one of our distribution requirements is that you have to take the majority of your classes outside your major. So you need 32 classes to graduate, or 32 credits to graduate. Here, a credit is normally a class. And 20 of those 32 have to be outside your major, which is really, really cool because it's forcing you to explore and it's making you take classes across all different disciplines. So my major is peace and conflict studies. My minor is biology. I've taken physics and chemistry for pre-med. I've taken sociology and anthropology courses. I've taken classics courses, ancient history, religion, English, French, yeah, all sorts of other things. So you definitely have an opportunity to explore and try lots of different topics while you're at SWAT. The next question is, what should incoming freshmen know? What should incoming freshmen know that most don't, and how do you maximize the pass-fail first semester? So gonna like answer the second half first. Talking about pass-fail is one of the best things about SWAT. So the first semester that you're on campus, your freshman fall, is entirely pass-fail. So that means the 4 classes that you're taking will either show up as credit or no credit on your transcript, and you'll still have like a shadow grade that you can see, and you'll get lots of feedback, and you'll get grades on your papers and things like that, or your exams while you're in that class to help you figure out how you're doing and figure out kind of what college work looks like. But I think pass-fail is incredible because it gives you an opportunity to explore, which is my biggest advice for taking advantage of pass-fail, is kind of push yourself outside your comfort zone and take a class that is something you haven't heard of, something you've always been interested in, something like that during your freshman fall. So I had no idea what peace and conflict studies was when I started SWAT. I think it's kind of an obscure major that we have that's actually like really integral to the Swarthmore academic experience. And so I decided to take a first year seminar, which is a class just for first year students. There's like 12 of you and a professor, and it was about global responses to violence, looking at religion and governments and NGOs and like how all of those things are related to both fostering and mitigating violence. And that was a peace and conflict studies course. I've taken 4 classes with that professor who taught my first year seminar, and I went on a 10-day study trip with him this winter for one of those classes. So being able to explore freshman fall and like take a class that otherwise was pretty outside my comfort zone, something I'd never even heard of, has pretty dramatically altered like the course of my education. And I'm really grateful for that because I've loved all of the peace and conflict studies courses that I've taken. So I think that's my biggest advice with pass fail, is definitely like take advantage of it to explore things that you otherwise might not have known about.
I guess a question that we have here, which is very relatable for all of us right now during these times, is how is remote learning working out for everyone? For me, my experience, my professors have been for the most part, very understanding of the situation right now. Remote learning isn't the ideal situation for a lot of us. I'm especially a student who I don't do learning online really well. I'm more of an in-person, I need you there to guide me kind of student. But once again, for the most part, the professors have been really understanding of things like time differences, commitments at home, or any other issues that might be going on when we're here during these times. Anybody else want to contribute?
I think most people have been pretty flexible and understanding, which is really good. And yeah, professors are all really open when we're all on campus. A lot of them have like huge blocks of office hours and just like want to chat with us and learn about our lives outside of class. And so I've had professors like sending emails to check in and make sure everyone's doing okay. So yeah, it's definitely less than ideal. But overall, the transition seems to have gone kind of as smoothly as it could have.
I can take the next one. So it says, how good is SWAT at introducing you to material in which you have little to no prior knowledge? I would say fairly well. I had not taken any engineering classes before getting to Swarthmore, really any environmental classes other than like an introductory environmental science class. And I was a little afraid of not being ready for engineering or feeling like it was going to be too tough and I was going to be really behind a lot of other students. But and the really great thing is because a lot of students come from very like all over the world and with different backgrounds in schooling, SWAT understands that no one's going to come in with the same amount of knowledge in a certain subject. So professors work really hard to introduce subjects and make sure everyone's on the same page. And if they don't, then like if you're a little behind on something that everyone else is like sort of fairly certain on, then you can always go to a TA session where someone may help you with your homework. You can get a tutor. There's a lot of different resources to be able to help you in the sort of instance where you feel like you're falling behind and everyone else is still going ahead. But usually what's the case is everyone falls a little behind and then the professor might have to go back a little bit or you might just need to reach out. And I think it's one thing that I learned the hard way at SWAT was that it's okay to ask for help and that there's no wrong with going to a homework session. There's no wrong with telling your professor you need to have an extension for a homework assignment, just because like the learning experience is different for everyone and you need to be able to sort of be okay with shifting your plan to fit whatever it is that you need.
The next question says, do any of you do honors? Does doing an honors major limit your ability to participate in study abroad and other activities? So yeah, so honors is a really cool program that we have at SWAT. None of us are honors, right? No? Okay, just checking. Yeah, so about 25% of students will choose to do honors, and honors is a little bit of a misnomer. It's not like a special program. You don't apply to be in the honors program. It doesn't give you any special privileges on campus. It's just a different way of approaching material. So normally for a major, you'll take 8 credits in that major. Normally means about 8 different classes. They'll go across a wide variety of topics. And what an honors major means is that you're getting a little bit more specific in your material. So we have these classes called double credit honors seminars, and they are very, very specific classes. So maybe instead of reading for an English class, maybe instead of reading like 19th century American literature, you focus on a single author for the entire semester and read everything they've ever written and get really, really in depth in what they're doing. And so it's just a little bit of a different way of learning, and one like honors or course major, neither one is like better or worse. It just depends on how you want to learn. So when I decided to come to SWAT, I was actually really interested in the honors program. I thought that's what I wanted to do. But then as I looked more at what the course requirements were going to be with those double credit seminars, it does limit you a little bit in your ability to get that breadth and to explore other areas, which I realized was more important to me. The question also asks about like limiting your ability to participate in other activities. So whether that's like study abroad, or like I know some students are pre-med and honors, it is definitely possible to study abroad and be honors. I have a lot of friends who have done that. It is definitely possible to be pre-med and honors. In my case, it was a little bit challenging. It was going to be a little bit challenging to study abroad, do honors, and be pre-med, because then I wasn't really going to be able to take courses outside of my pre-med requirements and my major requirements. And so I wanted to just have a little bit more flexibility in what I was doing. So that's why I decided to do a course instead of an honors major. But I have a lot of friends who really love the honors program, and the kind of like hallmark of the honors program is that after finals end your senior year, you have honors examinations where we bring in world experts on on your topic, and they create an exam for you. So if you are an honors CS major, we might bring in a coder from Google. We brought in one of the art historians from the Louvre in Paris for an art history major. I had a friend who was doing a Russian honors major, and they brought in a Russian author, and she hated him. Like, she did not like the things that they had read by him, and she was really excited to then have the opportunity to have a conversation with him and be like, listen, like, these are why I think the themes that you're writing about are really problematic. And she was able to engage with this world scholar as a senior in college, which was really, really cool.
Okay, so I see a couple questions about Philly. So the one I'm answering is how feasible is travel to Philly for fun and what academic opportunities are in Philly. Also kind of talking about, how often do students go? Does being on a suburban campus kind of inhibit our access to what the city would offer us? So one, I want to say that Philly is my favorite city of all time. I really love Philly, probably because I'm from the area. But I would say that there's definitely lots of different ways to get to Philly. We do have a train station on the edge of campus. It's honestly closer to, it can be very close. It's like a 3-minute walk from my dorm. Depending on where you are, it's a very close walk. And they have hourly trains. So we're on the Media Element line. It takes you about 30 minutes to get into Center City, off at 30th Street Suburban Station, wherever you need to go. And so you can go that way. You can also get, and their pass is like $13, but you can get funding. So, you can get funding from the Lang programs for if you want to go and see a show. Because I wanted to see a dance show, I requested tickets, and I got those. I know for the climate strike, a lot of people were able to get funding, so they could, get into Philly, because, definitely there's a range of ability in terms of like spending the money all the time. I would say I personally go like twice a month probably, when I can. And it's definitely a range, depends on who you are as a person. In terms of the academic opportunities, I know people have done kind of fellowships with the PMA, and there are opportunities to go into the city if you would like to do that and you do work with them. We aren't like right in the city, so it's not super, it's not the easiest thing to do. You probably wouldn't be able to do that with, say, you're taking like 5 credits and doing a bunch of other things. But if it's important to you, you can definitely get into the city. And I personally really like being on SWAT's campus because, as I mentioned in the beginning, but I think it's beautiful and it is very suburbia, but there's nothing like our flowers and being in an arboretum and then being able to hop on the train and like visit my favorite city. So I definitely like having that duality and being able to hang out with my friends. I also have friends that go to Temple and Penn, so I visit them occasionally and they visit me, and it's really nice having the train station really close. We also have zip cars. If you do have a car, you're able to drive if you like, but there are a few ways to get into the city as well.
Okay, so the next question is, given Swarthmore's reputation, would it be difficult socially if someone is fairly politically neutral? So I think we definitely do have a very politically active campus, and students are definitely aware of current events and talking about current events, but I also don't think that has to dominate your social experience in any way. So yeah, my friends and I might talk about things that are happening on the news that we were reading. The dining hall has the New York Times that you can get in the morning, like you can just pick it up when you're at breakfast. And so there are ways to stay politically aware while you're on campus. But if that's something that you're less interested in, one of my best friends, he really like doesn't follow politics until it comes around to the election, and then he educates himself and goes and votes. But so like, I know that that's not the type of conversation he wants to have. So we'll talk about the football game over the weekend or something like that. And so it's definitely something that you would have to navigate, just because I think politics play a large role on most college campuses and especially at SWAT. But it definitely does not have to dominate your social experience in any way. People are involved in lots of other activities. People are talking about lots of other things. And so, yeah, it's possible to find a balance.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Hannah about it doesn't have to dominate your experience here at SWAT. I would say that, however, to be open to having these kinds of conversations sometimes, because there are moments in time where these are political situations that do affect some people that are on our campus. So definitely have an open ear, and at the same time students are also receptive to other students who are like, I don't want to get involved with this in any type, shape, or form. So it's usually kind of like okay, I'll like step back for a little bit, but once again, I would recommend keeping like an open ear sometimes, because these things do affect people.
So the next question, how much involvement is there between colleges in the consortium? I would say it varies, but there is ways to get involved. I took a class at Haverford last year, and I was currently taking a class at Bryn Mawr this semester. Both of those, one class I took at Haverford just because it was a requirement that I wasn't able to take here at SWAT. But the Bryn Mawr class was a really interesting class that has no parallel at Swarthmore. It was a class on Indigenous Studies and Environmental Studies and their connections, which is a class that I'm still really, really enjoying and I'm still continuing. It's really easy to take classes at Haverford and Bryn Mawr if you want to. It's really easy to transfer credits over. There's also sort of dance groups that go between the TriCo. There's music groups that go between the TriCo, a cappella groups. Even if you just wanted to go to Haverford or go to Bryn Mawr and have a lunch or a breakfast, or just go to any of their events, we're all cash-free campuses for the most part. So I could go to the Bryn Mawr dining hall and use sort of a meal pass that I got from our dining hall, and then I wouldn't have to pay to eat there. I would just use a regular meal pass. At the same time, I could go to a speaker event at Haverford and not have to pay for it. And Haverford and Bryn Mawr students can come to our events and not have to pay for them. I would say Haverford and Bryn Mawr are a little bit closer than Swarthmore is because they're physically closer to each other. So they have a lot more interaction, but that doesn't mean that we don't have interaction between us. And I have definitely made a lot of really close friends at Bryn Mawr through my time just sort of visiting and being on campus for work and stuff.
Here's another question that I thought we should answer since we're talking about SWAT a lot. What do you guys not like about SWAT? So for me to start off, I say what I don't like about SWAT sometimes is honestly the small feel of the campus. So I know I said this and like, why did I come to Swarthmore? I wanted a much smaller community. That sometimes, bites me in the butt sometimes because very often, like we are seeing each other, a lot of each other all the time since it's a school of about 1,500. So it can be pretty hard sometimes to avoid people you kind of don't want to see or, people you had some kind of argument with, that kind of thing. So it can be a little bit difficult to navigate social life in that aspect. But when I do tours, this is the answer I give, like, what do I like and what do I hate? It's always like the small community feel. It's like, I love it, but I also hate it. Right.
There's a question about career advising and internships at SWAT. So we have a whole career services office. They are really great. And they have a whole website that we can use. It's called Handshake, and there's a lot of different internships on there. There's job opportunities. And so as a senior this year, I've been going through that really frequently, looking for different things that are coming up. So even though I am planning on going to medical school, I'm going to take a little bit of time off before. And so I knew that I was going to have to be searching for a job. The Career Services Office also does a really good job helping you with like resume prep, so they can help you organize your resume or your cover letter. They can do interview practice with you. And so they're a really good resource on campus. And they also have a lot of resources for internships over the summer. And a lot of those internships that you can get through Career Services, you can then apply for funding through those other things that Bria and I were talking about earlier. For me, I actually have a job for the next 2 years that I got through the pre-med advisor. So she sends out all these emails about different research opportunities and jobs for students who are interested in the health sciences fields. So I have a science writing job. I'm going to be moving out to San Francisco whenever that's possible. And I'll be doing that for the next 2 years. So I'm really excited about that. And I got that through more like specific like pre-med advising, but the Career Services Office is also a really good resource for students.
We're at about 3 minutes. I think we're going to answer like 1 or 2 more questions and then call it a day. I'm going to answer this one. It says, how's the food at SWAT? A lot of people have been asking it, and it's about time one of us answers it. The food at SWAT exists. I would say people have mixed opinions on the food. I personally love it just because SWAT really tries to have a variety of different meals that like change daily and have sort of like a 1 month schedule, just so that there's different types of food. There's like an Indian food bar, there's a Chinese food bar, there's like just different types of food that the school tries to make. There's vegetarian options always, there's halal options, there's a gluten-free room for students who just need like gluten-free food. There's always a salad bar if you're not available like during the hot food time. If you don't want to eat at the dining hall, there's a SE Maze, which is our staff-run snack bar. There's also some coffee bars on campus. So there's a lot of different places to get food on campus. Other than that, we have a small borough right next to us, the town of Swarthmore, that has a couple restaurants and a co-op that lets us use our meal plan for purchasing groceries and stuff. So yeah, quick answer for that.
All right. There are a few questions about like distribution requirements and finding a major minor. So this will probably be our last question because we're almost out of time. But there is a ton more information about all of this on the website. You can go to academics. There's like a whole tab for distribution requirements. Basically what the format looks like is that you take 32 credits to graduate. So we normally take 4 classes a semester, and a class here is normally a credit. And so by the time you've graduated, you'll have 32 credits. And majors are normally 8 to 12 credits, and then that leaves you up to 20 credits outside your major. And so like I mentioned earlier, 20 credits of your 32 have to be outside your major. So that's one of our distribution requirements. You can't take like only biology classes. You gotta do some other stuff. And then our other distribution requirements, we have no required courses, but the distribution requirements that we have are 3 classes across 3 different disciplines. So we have to take 3 classes in the social sciences, 3 classes in the humanities, and 3 classes in the natural sciences. And you can choose whatever classes you want those to be. So say you never want to take a physics class ever again, that's fine. Maybe you take a math class in the natural sciences, or we have a food engineering class. It's a cooking class, but they call it food engineering, so it's in the natural sciences. You could take computer science. So there are all sorts of different options for satisfying those distribution requirements. And then we also have a requirement that you take 3 writing intensive classes. Those don't have to be English classes. So for example, intro bio is a writing class because you're learning how to write lab reports. So those classes are really to teach you how to write at a collegiate level, which is pretty different than what most people do in high school. And then other than that, that's it. Those are our only graduation requirements. So it's very easy for people to double major, minor. And so like my best friend, she is a double major in peace and conflict studies and French. I have a major and a minor. It's very, very common for people to do all sorts of different combinations with that.
All right. So with that, we have our last question. Thank you, everybody, for coming into the panel. If you have any more follow-up questions, the admissions office has a lot of opportunities for you guys to connect to tons of different SWATs. So we have more panels like this coming up in the near future, smaller informal hangouts. So if you're looking for like hangouts to really talk with the students, those are available. And there are students who you can also email your questions to. As a matter of fact, we do have an Ask a SWATty page. So if in the case you want to ask a question to any of us, I'm pretty sure some of our information or other SWATties information is there as well. You should also visit the Admitted Student website and connect with each other on the Admitted Student Facebook group. Other than that, thank you guys for all participating in this panel. So yeah, I think that's it for tonight.